Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I want to talk about one of the biggest problems facing newer players in the game now, and that is Rise of the Empire, how to prepare yourself for it, why is it something you want to rush for, but at the same time I'm going to tell you that you want to rush for Rise of the Empire for the sake of the rewards, but you don't want to rush being ready. We're going to explain why that is, why it's such, why it is an important game mode, but why as a newer player you need to understand what the consequences of trying to rush into being ready for it is, because it's not something that's designed for players who are just starting this game. It's designed for accounts who've been here a while. We're going to talk about these things, so make sure you like and subscribe, comment down below, and we're going to give a huge shout out to my channel members. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. If you're interested in joining channel memberships, I do have a link in the video description down below, and I do just need to address something that I've been seeing a lot in the comments lately, that I sound like Andrew Tate sometimes, or that I sound like Ezra Miller. So the first thing is that, you're a real top G if you subscribe and like this video. But, gosh, I'm going to get canceled now. But, the two people that you really, should aspire to sound like Ezra Miller and Andrew Tate. But if you're, if somebody's out there looking for Ezra Miller sound bits for their studio, I will do it for half of what you paid him. It's a real cut rate deal, so I'm going to throw that out there. Anyway, guys, let's get into the game. Let's talk about Rise of the Empire a little bit. So, Rise of the Empire is a huge problem for new players. And that's because the requirements to get in are huge. That you need to be Relic 5. Like, you think these are the gear requirements that I would say for the other territory battles, just to get in. So, Light Side Geonosis was Relic 3. Like, that's alright. That's steep, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's insane, right? Really, it was reasonable. You think about Geonosian Brood Alpha at Gear 12 here. That was plenty good enough to get things done in the first wave of, Dark Side Geonosis. For, the Hoth TBs, Gear 8 was getting it done in the first phase. To get to those final phases, you started getting into, like, Gear 11 here, Gear 12 for, Hoth. For Dark Side Geonosis, you needed some relics on there. Relic 3 with the right team was getting that done. Think of somebody like in the Geonosis TB, you probably wanted Relic 5 on your characters, and then now for Rise of the Empire, you need Relic 9s. So just think about, like, the gap in between these is huge. Now, the thing was that the rewards from each of these kind of progressed you to the next one. The concept was that, doing Light Side Hoth, just for the sake of argument, because that actually was, for those of you who weren't playing back in the day, Light Side Hoth was released before Dark Side Hoth. So we had multiple Hoth TBs, Light Side Hoth TBs in a row because they didn't release the Dark Side version yet. So I always felt that that one was a way to prepare you for what you needed for Dark Side Hoth territory battles. And then Dark Side Hoth territory battles kind of prepared you for what you were going to need to do Dark Side Geonosis. Dark Side Geonosis gave you the rewards to prepare your roster to do Light Side Geonosis, and then Light Side Geonosis is giving you the rewards you need to start competing in Rise of the Empire. Rise of the Empire kind of breaks the mold a little bit, where the rewards you're getting from Rise of the Empire are helping you build to be able to get to the later parts of Rise of the Empire, right? It's a very strange concept there, but trust me, like, I think that really works out, that, your rewards kind of progress over time. But as a new player, kind of, what you've got to keep in mind is the recommended power level for a guild is 250 million. Now, you're required to be only 200, but Capital Games has said the recommended power level to do Rise of the Empire is 250 million. But let me break that down a second here. That is 50 players by 5 million GP for 50 players is what they're really saying. I know that's not realistic, but that's the concept that they're trying to portray there. It'd be so much easier if they said 5 million per player, but they're like, 250 million power guild. But you think in a 250 million power guild, you may have players who are 7 million GP. You may have people who are 3 million. You could have somebody who's 2 million. They're not at all prepared for Rise of the Empire, and they shouldn't be. But they're going to be playing it. And what's going to happen is they're going to feel the strain of needing to do certain things to prepare their guild for, to get to be a member of their guild. And it's causing strain, and then they're suffering in other aspects of this game. So Rise of the Empire, unfortunately, has really put a strain in guilds that I think wasn't quite there before, because of just how strict those requirements are, that you think, even in Light Side Geonosis territory battles, you could enter into battles with lower gear characters and at least try to get something done. Right? Like, I mean, I was using Gear 12 characters in Phase 4 of Geonosis territory battles at times. It's just the way it was happening. You cannot do that with Rise of the Empire. You bare minimum have to be Relic 5 in Phase 1. In Phase 2, bare minimum 6, Relic 6. Like, there's no wiggle room on you can be under if you're a good player. It doesn't exist anymore. And that's a huge blow. And the flip side of that is you are getting far more rewards. You're getting far better rewards than, say, what other players were getting. You think that the Rise of the Empire territory battle rewards, in terms of what they're worth in crystals and everything, far exceed what rewards would be worth in, say, Geonosis. There is one thing, though, that I do want to, before we move on to the next point here, there is something I do want to mention. The rewards for Rise of the Empire territory battles are primarily centered around increasing the relic levels on your characters. You're getting a lot of good signal data. You're getting some of those relic materials. You are getting some gear, but the get 3, primarily looking at getting some of those relic materials with it, right? Things that really enhance your roster at the highest level, comparative to getting some of those pieces you need to the left side of Gear 13 and the right side of Gear 13. You're not getting quite as much of those, especially because, and the other thing is Kairatech, that you're not getting as much guild event currency 2, which you were using for Kairatechs in Geonosis. So it's a different kind of reward, and I'd kind of liken it to, what did you learn to drive in, right? Did you learn to drive in your mom's Mazda MPV, or was that just me? Don't diss a swagger wagon. Or did you learn to drive in a Lamborghini, right? That you had to learn the first few things, right, before you could get to that last point. It's kind of the way I look at Rise of the Empire. Like, you don't just jump right into the Lamborghini and start trying to drive it. You gotta learn on the other things first. So I do just want to mention that. It's, that you are getting far more rewards. But the other side here is you're given much less time. And what I mean by you're given much less time is, think of how long players had to develop their rosters in Hoth territory battles and Geonosis territory battles. And that's not happening in this new Rise of the Empire. That you are just going to be forced into doing it so much earlier because those rewards are helpful. And I think a lot of players with this, like, given much less time, you're given more rewards, but it's causing you to have to focus a lot more. But if you're not in a guild that is realistic on what the expectations are, you could be trying to build Inquisitors when, like, by 5 million GP, because, hey, that's, or 4 million GP, 5 million GP building Inquisitors because we need to get Riva, not recognizing just how taxing that is on an account of that size. Like, 5 Relic 7s is a lot of signal data. That's a lot. It's a lot of gear. It's a lot of signal data that you're pouring into just 5 characters. And yes, Riva's good. Do not get me wrong. She's a great character. But that is a lot of resources to be pouring into something that you could be using in other areas of the game. The other thing that I say about being ready, for Rise of the Empire is that you have these characters who are very popular in operations that are all locked behind Conquest and Proving Grounds. So your guild gets here and you're trying to complete in operations and you can't do anything because these characters are all necessary. Trust me, they are. Galactic Legends are even necessary, but I think these ones are almost worse because if you're, you think about how, not only is it that, we talked about Proving Grounds a little bit and how it is a problem because it takes so long, but you think about it, if you hit 4 million today, you're going to unlock all 5 of those characters right at the same time. If you get all their Proving Grounds done, you're unlocking them all at the same time. Exact same day. And you need them bare minimum Relic 5 to start putting them into platoons. So, you can't possibly be ready for all of these things. And then on top of that, even, like, operations are worth so much more. So characters like Ugnaught, who is required for them, some of these other randoms like Night Sister Initiates and, just pretty garbage characters that we need at relic levels to be able to complete operations to earn more points than you do in combat missions. And that was a big change from what Geonosis was, where Geonosis, you could get a lot of points from combat missions, and players with low GP could punch well above their weight if they could get combat missions done. Now, combat missions are worth so much less that it's very difficult for you to really punch above, so far above your weight, unless you're just far outseeding combat missions comparative to everybody else. So the reason I'm bringing up this operations problem is, you at 5 million galactic power, 4 million galactic power, do you really want to be relicking Ugnaught? Do you really want to be pouring resources into being with a person in your guild to pour it into Ben Solo? or Boba Fett sign a Django, or hey, you've got to go build Maul to Relic 7, and then guess what? You're just going to hit the platoon button every single time. Like, people don't want to do that. And you shouldn't at your GP because you're not prepared for it yet. It's not what you're ready for. So you don't want to rush this readiness into Rise of the Empire territory battles. It's not smart. What you'll be far better off doing is focusing on key characters. Focus on the key characters that are going to make a difference in your account. Like your Inquisitors, you do want to eventually focus on them, get them ready to go. But they're also a team then that you can use in multiple phases of territory battles. Think about a character like Lord Vader. Lord Vader, I can press auto on his missions. Jabba the Hutt has a combat mission every single phase. Like those are things that you can do that you're not necessarily rushing your readiness. You're just building that character. You have a team ready to go for them, and you're going to get it done. And that way, what you've done instead is you're letting other aspects drive your success in territory battles. That you think with the new Leia coming into the game, GL Leia's coming in. She's going to allow you, if you get GL Leia, she's going to let you do all these other things, and then she's going to help you in territory battles. And you think about how important that is to your account, that you're not only getting a character who can do things here in GAC, territory wars, that in every aspect of the game, she's driving it. Because if you just try to focus on territory battles, if you just try and focus on keeping up with your guild and building these things, you're just going to end up burning yourself out. You're going to end up feeling like you can't ever do what you want because your guild is constantly going to be wanting new things. And with Rise of the Empire especially, I find that this is exacerbated. Like my own guild, one of the things we really rushed for was, hey, we're going to get to, all the operations completed for, Relic 7. Right? We pushed ourselves to get there. That was our big goal. And now we're starting to think about those Relic 8 operations, but we're not quite ready to push players to do that every single time because we're getting into those characters where it's like, gosh, who wants a Relic Night Sister, Relic 8 Night Sister Initiate? Shout out Cola Dog. We really appreciate you doing that for the guild. But think about that. Relic 8s, just to throw them in platoons, that's the situation that we're in now. So accounts aren't ready for that kind of outlay of resources. Their Relic 8s need to be on characters that are going to be useful to them, that are going to help them progress through this game. And I'm finding more and more that as newer players are getting into this game and they're like, man, I will never make it in Rise of the Empire because I constantly need to do stuff like this. Like, no, you don't. Just let your account build naturally over time. Build up those things and let Rise of the Empire let your success there kind of be derived from having success in the other areas of the game. You will be I'm not saying that you don't do things for your guild once in a while, but I think the smart guilds are the ones that are pushing their players to increase their rosters in the GACs, the territory wars. Say, hey, we do need you to build Inquisitors, but they help you in all these other areas. Because they recognize that in a game mode like Rise of the Empire, having a stronger account in other areas will make you better there too. The last thing I want to mention here is understanding the importance of these newer characters that are coming in, like Jedi Knight Cal, Malicos, Rex, these characters who are not going to be in the traditional operations. That in the operations that they released for from the planets for the first 6 phases that they released in the game, those planets, their operations will not change. Their operations don't change. So any character who is released after this point is worth that much more because they won't be needed for operations. So you think about a team like the, Terran Malicos, Unaligned Force users with Seer, Cal. You build up a team like that and you're able to platoon something else for your guild. Boom, thumbs up. You're worth that much more. Jedi Knight Cal, similar situation. You're able to platoon other Jedi because you have him. Captain Rex with your Phoenix, if they're able to get work done, and you can platoon some of your other more common rebels. I'm telling you guys, the importance of characters like this cannot be understated. Now, I'm not saying that you go and farm these things as new players. You guys know how I feel about that. What I'm saying is that if you really want to help your guild, you build your account to the point that characters like this are entering in and you're able to platoon those other things. I hope all this makes sense. Like, I know it's really hard to show without it going on, but I saw a lot of comments about players being like, I feel like I don't know what to do. Like, if you're the highest, GP member of your guild, and they'll be like, it's not fair that I have to build everything. I mean, yes and no. You, as the highest GP member, you have probably access to the most resources. So comparative to the rest of the guild, you have the easiest time to do that. Now on the flip side, if you're like, I'm in Kyber 1, like I shouldn't have to do that. Why isn't the guy who's in Chromium building that? Like he obviously doesn't care about where he is in GAC. You know, if you're in a situation like that, don't be afraid to voice yourself a little bit. Like back yourself. Like I always say as a guild officer, I would much rather somebody come to me and say, Phil, I'm not going to build my Inquisitors, and here's why. And if they give me a good argument why they're not going to do it, and they're saying, hey, I'm not going to build my Inquisitors, I need to build Leviathan because I want to get better in GAC or Fleet Arena, or I need to build Leia. You know, if you can lay out a reason why, a lot of officers will respect that you're trying to do that. Now, listen, at some point we may be like, look, you got to build your Inquisitors, man. Come on. Like, this is ridiculous. But if you can say to them, hey, I'm not going to build them right now. I'm going to wait a little bit. I want to finish this project. I need to do this. Here's why. Just voice your opinion. And if their guild is like, listen, no, you're gone, go find one that will support you and what you want to do. Just be prepared sometimes that if you're like never willing to do anything for your guild, you will not find a good one. Like no good guild is going to take in a player that isn't willing to do garbanzo beans like this and this. I mean, that is the natural order of things. And if you do those less desirable relics like Ugnaught and some of these other characters, do you know how much more valuable you are to, even if you left your guild, to now go to another one and be like, yeah, I've got a bunch of characters you need for operations? Like, people will go head over heels for you because right there, they don't have to do X amount of work. So, I don't know. Hopefully all that makes sense. A little bit of rambling, but I think with Rise of the Empire, you can't rush being ready. It's better to just let your account grow it over time and kind of reap the rewards of, you know, your labor in other areas of the game, because we are asking you to really progress your account a lot faster. Now, we are giving you more rewards to do it, but you're not going to be ready by 5 million. I don't even think you're ready by 6 million GP to really participate in Rise of the Empire territory battles. I 1000% think that 7-8 million GP is when you can really start trying to participate in this game mode, because it just takes so much of your roster, it takes so much like work and relic levels, and then even just knowledge of the game. I mean, Rise of the Empire territory battles comparative to Geonosis is infinitely harder. So, I don't know, guys. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you all in the next video. May the Force be with you. Cheers.